Hello, good afternoon everyone. I'm kind of reaching that point in the afternoon where I can see a little bit of pasta from after lunch is starting to kick in, so I'll try and keep this brief. I'm going to talk about the role of space, and if I could get the slides to move forward. Aha, here we go, we have the technology. So my name's Alastair, Head of Extractive Industries at the Satellite Applications Catapult. I want to just take a moment to think about how satellite technology is changing the way the world lives and works. And that's focused really in on the applications for future mining and responsible investment. So who are the Satellite Applications Catapult? We are a not-for-profit innovation and technology company. Our mission is to innovate for a better world empowered by satellites. We're partly government-backed, we are independent, and we're looking to grow businesses. And we believe the power of space is significant and looking to grow ultimately the UK space sector to 40 billion by 2030. If you think for a second, what does satellites mean in our world? Well, actually, we're all using satellites every single day, whether that's how you observe the world around you, how you communicate in the most difficult to access parts of the world, or whether it's be how you can navigate to a new location or find out what time it is in a different place. So what I'm going to talk about today are just some examples to try to bring that to life, because there are so many different applications of space. I'll focus today on just those in the mining sector. The first kind of topic area I'm going to talk about is around environmental monitoring. And this could be anything from things like land cover classification through to vegetative health, also looking at things like soils and geology, and wider water quality, for example. And these are all applications that have come from things like Earth observation. But of course, there's the ability to go back in time. So not just looking at how things are now, but how things were before and how things are after. And if we think about that in the context of the mining life cycle, this is where satellites have an important role, and that the independent source of information is powerful. So here's an example. This one actually is in the UK. It's from Cornwall. It's as some of you may know, it's an area with a mining heritage. What we're looking at here is things like, for example, land cover classification. So here, for example, we're using quite high resolution land cover classification. But also we can look at this in the context of vulnerability to, for example, water and the impacts that may have. So I want to just touch on that briefly. But if I look at some of the broader things that are happening in industry, Ed talked about some of the things, and for example, the publication of the tailings standard on the 5th of August last year. But some of the work that we've been doing in reacting to some of the pressures that are in the industry, and also the requests from investment groups such as the Church of England, the Swedish Council of Ethics and the pension boards, looking at how space and demonstrating how space can have a role in identification, monitoring, the scale, and looking at things like instability of tailings dams, and also applications like seepage. I'm going to give you an example. This one was actually one of the 50 dams that we looked at. This particular one is using a technology called Insar. It's a type of radar satellite, but basically what it's doing is looking for millimetric levels of movement on the ground. That sounds crazy. How from space can you possibly detect something down to millimeters? Well, you can if you do it on a solid baseline and with some pretty serious mathematics. It's a well-established method. I'd be first to recognise this is only part of the puzzle. You will have seen that there is also information to be derived from the ground, sensors, geotechnical knowledge, etc. But space has a valuable input into this puzzle and provides an independent source of information. So I'm going to talk about the second topic area, and this is really about operational efficiency. So this is throughout the mining cycle. You can see it in the picture you're looking at here. And in particular, things like the ability to, for example, map minerals, or maybe looking at things like detecting the best site for renewable energy locations, or efficiency in the mining operations themselves. Let me try and give you a few examples of that. So when we talk about, for example, mineral mapping, let's just bring that into the here and now. We just finished COP26. There were commitments made in COP21 in terms of the scenario and staying within a 2-degree scenario. Well, the World Bank captured this quite nicely last year when they looked at their projections of what would be required to stay within a 2-degree scenario, and the minerals, and particularly some of the battery metals, for example, that are required to be able to make that transition to EV, but also energy storage, the lithium that's in our phones, for example, but also renewable energy sources, so things like wind turbines, solar panels, etc. They're all huge consumers, and this is incredibly topical. Even just in London yesterday, there was the Critical Minerals Forum met, and it's the grouping of academia, government and industry coming together to try and tackle some of these big issues that are ahead of us. I'm going to just give you a little insight on this kind of 5x demand you're seeing for some of these critical minerals and what we're doing in the UK to think about that. So here is a project I'm particularly excited about at the Catapult. This is looking at how we can tackle some of these big trends that are going on at the moment and the demand for battery metals. This is started with a feasibility study in 2018. And that was in partnership with a number of different companies. We have companies ranging all the way from mining companies like people like Cornish Lithium, and then also geology expertise from the British Geological Society and the Camborne School of Mines, through to Earth observation companies and people like CGG, Terrabotics, etc., all bringing expertise to this challenge. So if you get mining, geology, space, and machine learning in kind of one room, and you start to work together, you can actually crack some pretty difficult problems. So what we've been looking at is how you can use satellites and looking for proxies effectively to understand where are the areas of higher likelihood of lithium or battery metal locations. So let me just one thing I just want to say on passing. It was also announced just last week, Cornish Lithium has managed to secure £18 million of investment. It was a fantastic, so a big shout out to the Cornish Lithium team. I've seen some of them around London the last couple of days, so a good investment from TechMet there. Next I'm just going to talk about 5G and communications. So this is a new area that we're looking at how, for example, in other sectors like agriculture and health, etc., making quite good use of the 5G next generation technology. In extractives, there's a race going on currently, and there's a couple of early contenders, let's say, in Europe and in China. And if you follow some of the articles that are in things like Mining Magazine, you'll be aware of some of the things that are happening here. Where I'm coming from here is the kind of, what does this newer innovation mean? What can you do now? So, for example, we see the trends around robotics and AI, etc. But what does the benefit of ubiquitous connectivity bring to the mining sector? So, whether that's combining connectivity through terrestrial and satellite together, all the way down to the mine. What does that then enable? Is that about safety or robotics or autonomy or even remote monitoring with headquarters the other side of the world? So I'm interested in exploring with you what those use cases are, and if you'd like to discuss that further, please come and find me after the meeting. Finally, let me just summarise and bring that all together. So first of all, I've talked about 3 topic areas: environmental monitoring, and this could be anywhere from the baselining of what we're seeing on Earth, going through to ongoing operations and things like monitoring of tailings dams, for example. Operations efficiency, geological insight on a significant scale, critical minerals, looking at, say, for example, stockpiles or volumetrics, the applications of ubiquitous connectivity. There is so much happening in this area. And then the final area is around social engagement. And there is a complex stakeholder map out here. We all know that. There are mining companies, there are investment groups, there are environmental organisations, there are government interests, etc. And having that source of information that's independent and then can be referred to is powerful both before, during and after mining operations. Just final thing I wanted to say is there is a community out there on LinkedIn called Mimesense. It's where mining meets space. It's free to join. I would encourage you to have a look at it and see some of the conversations that are going on there. Please sign up, and you'll be able to keep in contact with what some of the latest developments are happening. So thank you for that, and pass over. Thank you.